Hi guys, this is week number 6 of the Christian apologetics series, and we're going to be continuing the second part of our study of biology. This week we're going to go into the statistics of the different possibilities and the evidence supporting that. But just to review first, we're talking about the two different views of how life started on this earth. The materialistic view is that life evolved from chance alone, or that there was just natural selection, and it came to be that way. The theistic worldview is that life came about through intelligent design, not just chance. In the materialistic view, they talked about how possibly at the beginning of the universe, elements came together and made this big blob of protoplasm, which eventually led to the first life form. Well, when they looked further into this blob, they actually found that it was actually full of very complex structures called the cells. And these cells were not very simple at all. And they are made up of proteins and DNA. And when we looked closer at the proteins, they are very specific in their design and their sequence. So we're going to go right into it. To understand the probability and the mathematics of the protein, we're going to first talk about some simpler models to get our heads wrapped around how the chance of that happening is so slim. Okay, so let's, for example, look at this bicycle lock. See how there is 4 numbers that make up this combination lock. So out of the 10 possibilities, you have 4 different slots and 10 different possibilities in each slot. And the way they are configured, if they are configured just right, the lock works. And that the probability of that we'll talk about in class. So it's a sneak preview, but this is the probability of you getting the right code is 1 out of 10,000 possibilities. Okay, so even in this simple 4-digit lock, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to be able to find the right code to unlock this lock. Okay. Now let's take, for example, if we had a 10-number combination lock. Okay, how big is the number going to be that we're going to get the right code? It is 1 to the 10 to the 10. Okay, so 1 in 10 billion chance that we're going to get the right combination. Okay, now let's look at an actual protein, or even just the protein strand. Like we said, proteins are made of amino acids, and amino acids, these are all the different colors representing the different colors or types of amino acids that make up a protein. There are 20 different types of amino acids. So in each slot here, you can have 20 different amino acids fit into that slot. Okay, so this makes the math a little different than that 10-number combination lock. So if you had amino acid length of 2, because the number is possible combination or possible amino acids increases to 20. 20 times 20 equals 400. If you have an amino acid chain of 4, that number, the chance of you getting the right combination is 1 in 160,000. Now remember that 10-number bicycle lock? What is the chance of you getting the right number? 1 in 10 trillion. Okay, so it doesn't just double because there's more possible combinations of amino acids. It's exponentially bigger. Okay, so let's look at a protein strand here. What is the shortest length of a protein? We just talked about a 10 amino acid chain. The shortest protein is about 100 to 150 amino acids. the average length is 300 to 400 amino acids. Okay, so we're going to talk about one of the smallest proteins we know of that has 150 sites. What is the chance that they are picked just right so that it works as a functional protein? Is 1 to the 10 to the 195. This number is, it's not, we don't have a name for it. It is a really, really big number, okay? And we'll talk about how big that number is. Well, we got to give some allowances because that is not the exact probability of a functional protein. Because there is more than one working combination of proteins in a given sequence, like, there could be a few different, 100 different or 200 different combinations that could work. The odds are better. It's 1 in 10 to the 74, not 1 in 10 to the 195. Okay, so it is a little bit smaller. Let's continue. But when you add that each peptide bond between the amino acids have to be this specific peptide bond for it to be a functional protein, you have to double this number. Okay, we'll talk about it in class. So you have to take that number into consideration. Also, amino acids come in isomers, which is mirror images of each other. They're left-handed isomers and right-handed isomers. The interesting thing is that amino acids only use the left-sided isomers, and only these are able to work to fold properly to make a protein. So you have to add this number to the calculations. So adding the 1 to the 10 to the 74 and 10 to the 45 and 10 to the 45, you get a very similar large number, 10 to the 164. That is the number of possibilities of amino acids that you would have to get perfect. So the chances, like we said, the chance of finding a functional protein is 1 in 10 to the 164th. To understand how big of a number that is, let's just pick one. There have been 10 to the 16 seconds since the Big Bang. Okay, there are a lot of seconds since the Big Bang, so that is a way smaller number than that number. And we'll talk about this in class. The second alternative to just chance being as to causing the origin of life is natural selection. Well, it's saying maybe the perfect sequence of amino acids were naturally selected for because they were able to survive and produce functional proteins. Okay, that's initially or superficially it seems like a good solution to this problem of origin. The problem is that for natural selection to work, it requires propagation or a way of replicating itself for the process of natural selection to work. You can't just have a working protein length or a working protein and have no way for it to replicate itself and for it to become the dominant protein, because like I said here, it would just be there by itself as this working protein, but it would have no way for it to flourish or make more of itself. Okay, that could be confusing. We'll try to illustrate it in class. So in other words, the self-replication that natural selection needs, it requires DNA and sequence-specific proteins that help replicate that, or that are needed to replicate itself. when you don't have these things, um, that protein would just die or just disband, or it would just it wouldn't become uh, something functional in the universe. Okay. A third way that they thought could cause um, the origin of life or proteins was proposed by the scientist Dean Kenyon. He thought that there was something called biochemical predestination, in which amino acids maybe just once they were in a pool of protoplasm or a pool of um, somewhere close together, they were predestined to kind of just come together in a certain way. And they've seen this in nature. Like if you put a sodium ion, um, proton, I mean, and a chloride ion together in solution, the positive and negative electron forces are attracted, and you get salt, sodium chloride, and salt crystals come together in an organized fashion. So they thought maybe this is how proteins get together. The speaker that is um, that this scientist is talking about talked later at a conference on the origin of life. He disputed his own theories because the problem is not just that these proteins getting together in the perfect way, is that they are coded by DNA. And I will explain how that is a big problem for this predestination. If you look at a DNA molecule, and you see the backbone of a DNA molecule, the backbone is called sugar phosphates. They're identical. And then these are the rungs of the ladder, or what's called the, what are they called? Bases. Bases. These are what's differing between each DNA molecule or nucleotide. So if you look at these bonds between these different bases, they are identical, and there's no reason why they are placed just so. Okay, and we'll try to illustrate that in class. So to review, we're going to talk about the 3 possible naturalistic explanations for the origin of life. We talked about the big numbers and the improbability of chance being the cause. Number 2, the process of natural selection for proteins or functional proteins. Number 3, the prebiotic predestination possibility. Okay, and basically, when we really examine them, they just do not stand up to close study. And then next week, we are going to actually study the intelligence of what we see in life. Okay, so we will get to the nitty-gritty and show actual examples in class of all this material.